The
This is
Ferrari's engine caught the
unacceptable.
afternoon
We
light
need
like
results
scattered
now.
rubies across polished marble. 50 phones already angled to capture what Victoria Sterling intended as theater. The keys hit the floor with a sound that seemed louder than physics allowed, metal on stone. And every head in the showroom turned toward the black man in the gray janitor's uniform, who stood perfectly still, a spray bottle in one hand and a microfiber cloth in the other. Victoria's heels clicked twice as she stepped closer, her voice carrying the practiced projection of someone who'd learned to command rooms full of wealth. Her words came out smooth, almost gentle, which made them worse. Pick them up. The gallery of VIPs shifted, uncomfortable voyeurs to something they couldn't quite name yet. Marcus Westbrook kept his eyes on the keys, then raised them slowly to meet Victoria's gaze. Somewhere in the back row, Catherine Reeves set down her champagne flute and leaned forward. "Pick them up," Victoria repeated, louder now, "and prove me wrong." Marcus bent down. His knees cracked slightly. He was 37, not 27, and his body kept count of every 12-hour shift on concrete floors. The keys were cold in his palm, heavy with what they represented. When he straightened, every phone in the room tracked his movement. "The Ferrari's yours if you can fix it." Victoria's smile belonged on a predator. 5 certified specialists have failed, $12,400 spent. If a janitor can succeed where they couldn't, well, she gestured to the crowd. That would be quite the story, wouldn't it? The crowd rippled with nervous laughter. Someone near the front muttered something about entertainment value. Marcus closed his fingers around the keys, felt the Ferrari prancing horse emblem press into his palm, and spoke for the first time. "I accept, Mrs. Sterling." The certainty in his voice made Victoria's smile falter for half a heartbeat. Then she recovered, turned to her audience with theatrical grace. "1 hour. When you fail, and you will fail, you're terminated. Effective immediately." Marcus walked toward the Ferrari 488 GTB, feeling 50 sets of eyes drill into his spine, and the words that came to mind were his grandmother's, delivered 15 years ago in a Oakland hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and dying flowers. "Don't let them make you invisible." The memory steadied his hands as he reached for the hood release. The screen went black. White text appeared. 3 months earlier. The alarm clock's red display read 5:00 a.m. when Marcus's hand shot out to silence it. The apartment was dark except for the streetlight bleeding through curtains too thin to do their job properly. He lay there for 30 seconds, letting consciousness fully return, then swung his legs out of bed. The hardwood was cold under his feet. November in Los Angeles still had teeth in the early mornings. The bathroom mirror showed a face he'd started seeing more clearly in the last year. Not old, not yet, but carrying weight that had nothing to do with the scale. He splashed water, brushed teeth, avoided his own eyes. The routine was armor. The kitchen was barely a kitchen, more a suggestion of one in the converted garage apartment that cost $1,950 a month. Marcus pulled eggs from the refrigerator, bread from the counter, started the coffee maker that took 3 tries to gurgle to life. The photos on the shelf caught the first hints of dawn through the window. Nicole smiled from a frame he'd gotten at Target, frozen at 31. 4 years gone now to cancer that had moved faster than anyone predicted. The doctors used words like aggressive and metastatic, and unfortunately, and none of those words brought her back or explained to an 8-year-old why Mommy wasn't coming home. Marcus looked at the photo every morning, a deliberate act of remembering, then moved his eyes to the second frame. Pearl Westbrook in her janitor's uniform, 1985, standing in front of some office building in Oakland that probably didn't exist anymore. His grandmother had cleaned that building for 17 years, and when the photo was taken, she was 43. 6 years younger than Marcus was now. The thought always hit him sideways. She'd raised him from 12 to 19 after his parents' accident, taught him everything that mattered, died in 2009 at age 67 with $11 in her checking account. Bigger than the whole sky, baby. That's what she'd say whenever he showed her something he'd fixed, some engine he'd coaxed back to life. The phrase had been hers first, before he'd claimed it, before he'd passed it to Zoe. Footsteps in the hallway pulled him back. Zoe emerged from the bedroom, hair pointing in directions that defied physics, one sock on and one sock lost somewhere in the blankets. She squinted at the light, 8 years old and already too perceptive. "Morning, Daddy." "Morning, baby girl. Eggs? Can I have the ones with cheese?" "You can have eggs with cheese and toast and orange juice if you go find that other sock." She padded back down the hall, and Marcus cracked eggs into the pan, added cheese, watched it bubble and melt. The coffee maker finally finished its death rattle and produced something that approximated caffeine. He poured a cup, black, and burned his tongue taking the first sip. Zoe returned with both socks on, sat at the small table that doubled as his desk, homework space, and dinner table. She kicked her legs while she ate, a habit that made the whole table shake. Marcus didn't say anything. "Pick your battles." "Ms. Rivera says I can do the science fair." Zoe spoke around a mouthful of eggs. "The volcano one. With the baking soda and vinegar. That's pyroclastic flow, sort of. Close enough for 4th grade." "What's pyroplastic?" "Pyroclastic. It's when a volcano erupts and sends hot gas and rock down the mountain really fast. Destroys everything in its path." Zoe's eyes went wide. "Cool. Can we make it destroy things?" "We can make it destroy a model village if you want." "Yes!" She pumped her fist, nearly knocked over her juice. Marcus caught it before the spill. Reflexes honed by single parenthood. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Marcus washed dishes in the sink that leaked if you turned the hot water all the way, dried them with a towel that had seen better years, put everything away in the cabinet that didn't quite close right. The apartment was held together with duct tape and prayer, but it was theirs. He glanced at the bills stacked on the counter. PG&E overdue notice, final warning before disconnection. He'd pay it Friday after his check cleared, assuming nothing else broke first. The math was always tight, always a negotiation with disaster. Zoe brushed her teeth, gathered her backpack, checked twice for her homework. Marcus grabbed his keys, the Camry's key ring worn smooth from 25 years of use, and they headed out into the gray morning. The Toyota Camry was older than Zoe by 7 years, a 1999 model that Pearl had driven until she couldn't drive anymore, that Marcus had kept running through determination and skill and parts from junkyards. The odometer read 287,000 miles. The driver's side door complained when he opened it. Zoe climbed in the passenger seat, clicked her seatbelt, and immediately started fiddling with the radio. "Not too loud," Marcus said, turning the key. The engine turned over on the second try, which was a good morning. They drove through pre-dawn Los Angeles, streets still quiet, the city taking a breath before the chaos started. Zoe found a station playing something that passed for pop music, hummed along off-key. Marcus drove on autopilot, the route to her school etched in his muscle memory. Hancock Elementary appeared like most LA schools, beige buildings, chain-link fence, that particular institutional architecture that said education on a budget. Marcus pulled into the drop-off lane, waited his turn behind the parade of minivans and SUVs. "You got lunch money?" Zoe patted her backpack. $5. You gave it to me last night." "Right. Okay. Have a good day, baby." "You too, Daddy." She leaned over, kissed his cheek, tumbled out of the car with the controlled chaos of 8-year-olds everywhere. He watched her disappear through the gate, waited until she was inside, then pulled back into traffic. The drive to Beverly Hills took 40 minutes in light traffic, an hour plus during rush hour. Marcus used the time to think about everything and nothing, letting his mind drift while his hands managed the wheel and pedals. The Camry's trunk held everything that mattered. Pearl's old toolbox, the diagnostic equipment he'd accumulated over 8 months of skipped meals and extra shifts, hidden under a blanket so casual observers wouldn't see $3,000 worth of professional-grade tools. Sterling Prestige Motors appeared like a temple to excess, all glass and chrome and marble, the kind of place where the floor alone probably cost more than Marcus would earn in 5 years. He parked in the employee lot, far from the showroom, walked around back to the service entrance. The employee door required a code. He punched in 4738, heard the lock click, stepped into the fluorescent-lit hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and motor oil. The break room was empty at 6:30 a.m. Marcus clocked in, grabbed his supply cart from the storage closet, and started his rounds. Dust the reception area, vacuum the customer lounge, clean the bathrooms, the customer bathrooms, not the ones employees used, Windex every glass surface until it gleamed. The work was meditative in its repetition, left his mind free to wander. He was wiping down the fourth Ferrari of the morning when Thomas Brennan appeared. Thomas was 32, service manager, moved through the dealership with the ease of someone who'd never questioned their right to be there. White, clean-cut, the kind of guy who played racquetball and said things like circle back and synergy without irony. "Morning, Marcus." "Morning, Thomas." "You're here early." "Same time as always." Thomas leaned against the Ferrari, a 458 Italia that probably cost more than Marcus's apartment building. "I keep meaning to ask, what's with all the books?" Marcus paused mid-wipe. His cart held the usual supplies, but tucked in the bottom was a repair manual, hidden inside a binder labeled Cleaning Protocols. He'd thought it was subtle. Just like reading. Advanced Diagnostics and Repair Strategies. Thomas tilted his head to read the spine. "That's some heavy reading for break time. Keeps my mind sharp." "You really into this stuff? Cars, I mean?" "I like understanding how things work." Thomas nodded slowly, and Marcus couldn't read the expression. Curiosity? Suspicion? Pity? Before he could analyze further, Thomas's radio crackled. Something about a customer arriving early. Thomas straightened, gave Marcus a wave, disappeared toward the showroom. Marcus finished the Ferrari, moved to the next car, and the next. The morning crawled forward in increments measured by polish and glass cleaner. At noon, he took his lunch break in the employee lot, sitting on the Camry's hood, eating a sandwich he'd packed that morning. Turkey and cheese on bread that was 1 day from stale. He chewed slowly, watching luxury cars come and go, wondering what it felt like to drop $300,000 on transportation. His phone buzzed. Text from Zoe's school. Reminder. Science fair permission forms due Friday. He made a mental note he'd probably forget, finished his sandwich, headed back inside. The afternoon passed like the morning. At 3:00 p.m., he paused to check his phone. No messages from Zoe's after-school program, which was good news. And that's when he heard Victoria Sterling's voice carrying from her office. "I don't care what it costs. Fix it." Marcus wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The acoustics in the service hallway just worked that way. He kept cleaning, but his ears stayed tuned to the conversation happening behind the partially open door. "Mrs. Sterling, we've run every diagnostic protocol." Male voice, stressed. "The Ferrari's computer shows no errors, but it keeps stalling. Random shutdowns, no pattern." "Then find the pattern. That's what I pay you for." "We've had 5 specialists look at it. 12,000 already spent. Maybe we should contact Ferrari directly, have them—" "No." Sharp, final. "I'm not admitting defeat to corporate. Someone in this building can figure it out. Find them." Marcus moved down the hallway, but the gears in his head were already turning. Random stalls, no computer errors, 5 specialists stumped. He'd read about something similar in one of the technical journals, an issue with thermal expansion in mounting brackets, resonance frequencies that computers couldn't detect because they weren't sensor failures, just mechanical vibrations at specific temperature and RPM combinations. He finished his shift at 6:00 p.m., clocked out, drove back across the city to pick up Zoe. The after-school program cost $45 a week he could barely afford, but the alternative was leaving an 8-year-old alone for 3 hours, and that wasn't happening. Zoe climbed into the Camry with paint on her hands and a drawing of what appeared to be either a dinosaur or a very angry dog. She chattered about her day while Marcus navigated traffic, half listening, fully present. The skill of single parenting, being there completely while your mind handled logistics in the background. Dinner was spaghetti from a box and sauce from a jar. They ate at the table while Zoe did homework, Marcus checking her math, correcting her spelling, explaining photosynthesis in terms that made sense to a third grader. After homework came bath time, teeth brushing, pajamas, 3 stories from the library book they'd checked out last week, and finally, lights out at 8:30. Marcus stood in Zoe's doorway, watching her breathe in sleep, and felt the familiar weight settle on his chest. The love was so intense it hurt, a physical pressure behind his ribs. Everything he did, every shift worked, every indignity swallowed, every dream deferred. All of it was for the small person under those blankets, safe and warm and unaware of how precarious their situation really was. He closed her door softly and returned to the kitchen table. His laptop was 8 years old, screen cracked in one corner, but functional. He opened it, pulled up the browser, started researching. Victoria Sterling's dealership had been around for 30 years, founded by her father, Arnold Sterling. The company website showed all the usual things: awards, testimonials, photos of smiling customers with expensive cars. Marcus dug deeper. Public records showed business filings, some financials. He found a sealed lawsuit from 2018, details scrubbed, but the settlement amount visible: $1.9 million. Discrimination case, it looked like, before everything got buried under NDAs. He kept digging. Glassdoor showed 47 reviews from former employees, mostly negative. Patterns emerged. Cultural fit, not the right environment. Better opportunities elsewhere. Marcus read between the lines. Every negative review came from someone with a non-white name. Every glowing review came from someone who sounded like they belonged in a yacht club. He pulled up the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing database, plugged in Sterling Prestige Motors. The results loaded slowly on his ancient laptop. 67 complaints over the last 6 years, all filed by people of color, all closed as insufficient evidence or settled confidentially. The pattern was so clear it might as well have been written in neon. Marcus closed the laptop, rubbed his eyes. The clock said 11:30 p.m. He should sleep. Tomorrow was Thursday, which meant Victoria's VIP showcase event in the afternoon, which meant extra cleaning duties, which meant getting to work by 5:30 a.m. instead of 6:30. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him swipe to accept. "Is this Marcus Westbrook?" Female voice, older, cultured. "Who's asking?" "My name is Catherine Reeves. I was at Sterling Motors today. I saw what happened this afternoon." Marcus sat up straighter. Catherine Reeves. The name sounded familiar, and then his brain connected the dots. Tech entrepreneur, early investor in companies that became household names, net worth in 9 figures according to Forbes. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. What happened this afternoon?" "I saw you cleaning that Ferrari, the red one in the center. I saw how you looked at it." She paused. "You weren't looking at it like a janitor looks at something to clean. You were looking at it like a mechanic looks at a problem to solve." Marcus said nothing. "I've been around cars my entire life, Mr. Westbrook. I know the difference. And I know Victoria Sterling. I was planning to order 3 Lamborghinis from her, $2.4 million purchase. But after what I witnessed today, I'm reconsidering. I still don't understand why you're calling me. Because I think you know what's wrong with that Ferrari. And I think Victoria has no idea who she has working for her. Catherine's voice softened. I made a mistake once, 15 years ago. I had an engineer named Darius Coleman. Someone accused him of stealing code. I believed them without investigating. Fired him on the spot. Found out 6 months later it was all false. The other engineer had planted evidence out of jealousy. Darius's career never recovered. He's working retail now. I tried to make amends. He won't return my calls. Why are you telling me this? Because I see patterns. And I see you. Whatever happens tomorrow at that showcase, whatever Victoria tries to do, you should know you're not alone. Someone is watching. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the dark kitchen, phone in hand, trying to process the conversation. Catherine Reeves knew his name, had his number, was watching. The implications sprawled in multiple directions, none of them simple. He checked his phone. 11:47 p.m. Tomorrow would arrive whether he slept or not. He brushed his teeth, checked on Zoe one more time, collapsed into bed still wearing his jeans. Sleep came eventually, thin and restless. The alarm at 5 a.m. felt like an act of violence. Marcus dragged himself through the routine, got Zoe ready, dropped her at school, and arrived at Sterling Motors by 5:35. The showcase started at 2 p.m., but preparation meant hours of work beforehand. By 1:30, the showroom had transformed into something from a magazine spread. 50 chairs arranged in neat rows, each one facing the collection of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and McLarens worth more combined than most people would earn in multiple lifetimes. Catering had set up tables with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that cost more per bite than Marcus's hourly wage. Victoria Sterling moved through the space like a general inspecting troops, adjusting angles, critiquing placements, her energy wound tight. Marcus mopped floors that were already spotless, trying to be invisible, and watched the guests arrive. Wealth walked through those doors in tailored suits and designer dresses, confidence worn like armor. They collected champagne flutes, formed clusters of conversation, laughed at jokes only they understood. Catherine Reeves entered at 1:55 alone, wearing simple black that probably cost 5 figures. Her eyes found Marcus immediately, held for half a second, moved on. Victoria took her position at 2 p.m. exactly, microphone in hand, smile perfectly calibrated. The crowd settled into their seats with the rustle of expensive fabric. Thank you all for coming. Today I want to share with you not just vehicles, but possibilities. Victoria gestured to the cars around her. Each of these machines represents the pinnacle of human engineering. Centuries of innovation distilled into metal and carbon fiber and pure performance. Marcus continued cleaning in the background, invisible by design, and Victoria's eyes flicked toward him once, twice, something calculating in that look. Take this Ferrari. She walked toward the 488 GTB, ran her hand along its hood. $461,000, twin-turbocharged V8, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. But here's what makes it interesting. It's broken. The crowd murmured, confused. 5 certified Ferrari specialists have examined this car. 5. We've spent $12,400 trying to diagnose the problem. Random stalls, no error codes, no pattern. The best minds money can buy, stumped by a machine that should be simple. Victoria's smile sharpened. Which raises an interesting question. What separates expertise from pretense? What separates those who truly understand from those who simply claim to? Marcus felt the moment crystallizing, saw where this was heading. Victoria's eyes locked onto him. You there. Detail boy. The room went silent. 50 heads turned. Marcus straightened, spray bottle still in hand. Yes, Mrs. Sterling. Come here. He walked toward her, every footfall echoing on marble, aware of cameras coming out, phones angling for the shot. Victoria's smile never wavered. I've been thinking about education, about expertise. about how we determine who has the right to fix things versus who exists to clean them. She pulled the Ferrari keys from her pocket. So here's my proposal. You fix this car and it's yours. $461,000 in Italian engineering, all yours. The keys hit the floor with that distinctive metallic ring. Marcus stared at them, lying between him and Victoria like a gauntlet. Pick them up, Victoria said, and her voice carried something ugly underneath the polish. Pick them up and prove me wrong. Show all these people that someone like you, someone who cleans floors, who empties trash, who exists in the margins, can succeed where certified specialists failed. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable. Catherine Reeves leaned forward in her seat. Marcus felt the weight of every eye, every camera, every judgment forming in real time. He thought about Pearl, about Nicole, about Zoe sleeping peacefully last night, unaware her father was about to become entertainment. He bent down. The keys were cold in his palm. When he stood, Victoria was close enough he could smell her perfume, something that probably cost more per ounce than his rent. 1 hour, Victoria said. When you fail, and you will fail, you're terminated. Effective immediately. No severance, no reference, no second chances. She turned to the crowd. But if by some miracle this man succeeds where 5 specialists couldn't, well, the car is his, legally, witnessed by all of you. Marcus closed his fingers around the keys, the Ferrari prancing horse emblem pressed into his skin. He thought of Pearl in that Oakland parking lot, teaching him to hear what others missed. I accept, Mrs. Sterling. The certainty in those words made Victoria blink. Just for a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Doubt, maybe, or fear. Then it was gone, replaced by that predatory smile. The show begins. Victoria stepped back, gestured magnanimously. Please, enlighten us. Marcus walked to the Ferrari, and the crowd pressed closer. He opened the hood, stared at the engine bay, and let muscle memory take over. Pearl's voice in his memory. Listen, baby. Machines tell the truth if you listen. His hands moved on autopilot to his supply cart, pulled out items that looked innocent but weren't. The spray bottle with the infrared thermometer hidden inside. The shop rag concealing an acoustic stethoscope. The inventory clipboard with vibration sensors clipped underneath. He pressed the stethoscope to different points around the engine, listening. The crowd murmured behind him. Confusion, amusement, skepticism. Someone said something about voodoo. Someone else laughed. Marcus tuned them out, focused on what the machine was telling him. There, near the intake manifold. A sound that didn't belong, high frequency, rhythmic. He pulled out the infrared thermometer, started mapping temperatures across the engine bay. The LCD display showed numbers only he could see. 23 degrees Celsius hotter than baseline in one specific area, 18 degrees cooler nearby. Metal-on-metal contact where there shouldn't be any. Thermal transfer disrupted by a failing component. He straightened up, walked to Victoria, spoke loud enough for the room to hear. Micro-fractured aluminum mounting bracket near the intake manifold. The fractures are approximately 0.3 millimeters wide, invisible to visual inspection. Don't trigger any sensor errors. When the engine reaches 73 degrees Celsius at specific RPM ranges, the bracket vibrates at 847 Hz. That harmonic resonance disrupts the intake manifold seal, causes irregular air-fuel mixture readings. The engine control unit tries to compensate for bad data, but it can't fix a mechanical failure. Result: random stalls that seem unpredictable but actually follow a very specific pattern of temperature and engine load. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's face had gone pale. Someone in the crowd started to speak, stopped. Marcus held up his phone. I submitted this exact diagnosis 3 weeks ago via email. It went to your spam folder because it came from the janitorial email account. I included thermal imaging photos, acoustic analysis data, and recommended repair procedure. You never read it. A woman stood up in the third row, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, carrying herself with academic authority. She walked forward, pulled out her own phone, started making a call. Dr. Evelyn Cross, she introduced herself to the room. Professor of Mechanical Engineering at UCLA. I consult for Ferrari North America on technical matters. She pressed her phone to her ear, waited. Marco? Yes, it's Evelyn. I'm at a dealership in Beverly Hills. I need you to verify something with your chief engineer. She looked at Marcus. May I examine the vehicle? Marcus stepped aside. Dr. Cross pulled out her own diagnostic tools, professional grade, the kind that cost thousands. She pressed a digital stethoscope to the same location Marcus had indicated, her expression shifting from skepticism to shock in the span of 30 seconds. I hear it. 847 hertz, maybe 850. There's a secondary harmonic around 1200. She looked at Marcus with something like awe. You identified exact frequency without spectrum analysis equipment? I have a good ear. You have an exceptional ear. She pulled out an infrared thermometer, verified his temperature readings. These thermal variations are exactly what you'd expect from the failure mode he described. Microfractures causing harmonic resonance under specific thermal and load conditions. It's the kind of problem that stumps computerized diagnostics because it doesn't trigger any sensor alerts until the cascade failure begins. Victoria found her voice, found her. This is ridiculous. He's a janitor. He probably made all this up to sound impressive. Anyone can point at engine parts and say numbers. Then let's test it. Dr. Cross's voice went cold. I have Ferrari's head of technical services on the line. If Mr. Westbrook's diagnosis is correct, this is going into every training manual they produce. If he's wrong, well. She looked at Marcus. You'll be exposed as a fraud in front of 50 witnesses and Ferrari's chief engineer. Marcus met her eyes. Test it. Dr. Cross put her phone on speaker. A male voice with an Italian accent filled the showroom. Evelyn, what do you have? Marco, I'm looking at a 488 GTB with chronic stalling issues. 5 specialists have examined it, $12,000 in repairs, all unsuccessful. I have someone here who's diagnosed microfracture resonance failure in the intake manifold mounting bracket. 847 hertz at 73 Celsius. Claims it explains everything. Silence on the line. Then, what's the bracket part number? Marcus answered before anyone else could. 298847. Aluminum alloy, known to develop stress fractures after approximately 40,000 miles in hot climate operation. Ferrari issued a technical service bulletin about it in 2019, but didn't make it a recall because the failure rate was under 2%. More silence. When Marco spoke again, his voice had changed. Who am I speaking with? Marcus Westbrook. Mr. Westbrook, where did you study? I didn't. I'm self-taught. Self-taught. Marco sounded like someone had told him gravity worked sideways. And you know about TSB 2019-47? That bulletin was sent to authorized service centers only. It's not public information. I have a library card. Technical journals are free to access. Madre di Dio. A long exhale. Evelyn, his diagnosis is correct. Every word. That bracket failure is one of the most difficult problems to diagnose in modern vehicles, because it presents as electrical when it's purely mechanical. We've been training our master technicians on it for 5 years. If this man identified it through acoustic analysis alone, he's working at a level I rarely see even from certified engineers. Dr. Cross ended the call, looked at Victoria, then at Marcus. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the showroom. Mrs. Sterling, your janitor just diagnosed a problem that 5 Ferrari specialists missed. His analysis is not only correct, it's sophisticated enough to be published in automotive engineering journals. I've been in this field for 25 years. What I just witnessed is the most impressive diagnostic work I've seen outside of a Ferrari factory." The crowd erupted in whispers. Phones were definitely recording now. Catherine Reeves stood up, moved to the front, and Marcus saw the calculation in her eyes. "Mrs. Sterling, I believe Mr. Westbrook has earned the right to attempt the repair. Wouldn't you agree?" Victoria's jaw clenched hard enough Marcus could see the muscle twitch. She was trapped, and she knew it. 50 witnesses, cameras recording, a UCLA professor and Ferrari corporate both confirming the diagnosis. If she backed out now, she'd look like a liar and a cheat in front of her most important customers. "Fine." The word came out strangled. "You have 1 hour. If you damage the vehicle in any way, I'll sue you for the full value. And when you fail, he won't fail." Dr. Cross cut her off. "I'll supervise the repair myself. If he makes a mistake, I'll intervene. But I don't think he will." Victoria spun on her heel, disappeared into her office, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the glass. Marcus stood there holding the keys, aware that he'd just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Everything was different now. The question was whether different meant better or catastrophic. Catherine Reeves appeared at his elbow, spoke quietly. "I meant what I said last night. You're not alone in this." "Why do you care?" "Because I failed someone like you 15 years ago. Because Victoria Sterling has been running this place like her personal fiefdom for too long. Because every now and then the universe gives you a chance to do the right thing, and I'm tired of missing those chances." She pulled out a business card, pressed it into his hand. "That repair is going to take 90 minutes minimum if you want to do it correctly. You'll need the part. I'm having it delivered. Should be here in 20 minutes. "How did you—" "I made some calls while you were doing your diagnosis. Ferrari North America is very interested in this. So is the media. So are several people who've been watching Sterling Motors for pattern discrimination but couldn't prove anything." Catherine's smile was sharp. "You just gave them proof. On video. With expert witnesses." She walked away before Marcus could respond. Dr. Cross approached, pulled out a notebook. "I need to document this repair for Ferrari. You mind if I record the process?" "No. But I should tell you, I've never actually fixed this specific problem before. I've only read about it." "You read SAE technical papers on stress fracture resonance analysis for fun?" "My grandmother taught me to understand machines. She was a janitor for 40 years, cleaned buildings, fixed things people threw away, saw patterns nobody else noticed. She died when I was 17. Everything I know, she gave me the foundation for." Dr. Cross's expression softened. "What was her name?" "Pearl. Pearl Westbrook." "Pearl Westbrook." Dr. Cross wrote it down. "When this repair makes Ferrari's training manual, I'm going to make sure her name is in it. The world should know who taught you." Marcus felt something break loose in his chest. Some pressure he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten it was there. He nodded, not trusting his voice, and turned back to the Ferrari. The crowd had grown. Word had spread through the showroom, and now employees were drifting in, trying to look casual while watching the janitor work on a $500,000 car. Thomas Brennan stood near the back, face unreadable. Marcus made eye contact, got a slight nod in return. Not quite support, but not hostility either. Information filed away. A courier arrived with a small Ferrari parts box. Catherine must have paid for rush delivery. Marcus opened it, examined the replacement bracket. Perfect, unused, exactly what he needed. He looked at the tools on his cart, made a decision. "Dr. Cross, I need to be honest about something." "Go ahead." "Those tools I used for diagnosis, they're professional grade, cost about $3,000. I bought them over 8 months with money I should have spent on groceries. Been teaching myself diagnostic procedures at night after my daughter goes to sleep. I'm not certified, no formal training. Everything is self-taught from books and technical journals and YouTube videos. If that changes anything, Mr. Westbrook." Dr. Cross looked him dead in the eye. "I've watched Ferrari's top engineers work. Most of them have multiple degrees and decades of experience. What you just demonstrated suggests a level of mechanical intuition that can't be taught in any classroom. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is why you're not already running a shop of your own." "Because 47 places have rejected my applications in the last 3 years. Turns out nobody wants to hire a black man with no formal credentials to work on expensive cars. Easier to get me cleaning them." The words hung in the air between them, and Dr. Cross's face did something complicated. She started to speak, stopped, started again. "After we finish this repair, you and I need to have a longer conversation." Marcus nodded, turned back to the Ferrari, and let the machine fill his awareness. Everything else faded. The crowd, the cameras, the pressure. Just him and the engine, and Pearl's voice in his memory. "Listen, baby. Machines tell the truth if you listen." He began the repair. The bracket came out in 17 minutes using a ratchet that belonged in Pearl's toolbox, the metal still warm from engine heat, stress fractures visible once Marcus knew where to look. 3 hairline cracks radiated from the bolt hole, each one testimony to thousands of thermal expansion cycles, metal fatigue written in language only patient examination revealed. Dr. Cross photographed everything, murmuring technical observations into her phone's voice recorder, and the crowd pressed closer, 50 bodies leaning in to watch precision unfold in real time. Marcus set the damaged bracket on a clean cloth, unwrapped the replacement, held it up to catch the light. Perfect aluminum, no flaws, the kind of component that would last another 40,000 miles if installed correctly. The crowd wouldn't understand what came next, the precision required, the timing. He explained anyway. "Engine needs to reach exactly 73 degrees Celsius before installation. Not 72, not 74. Thermal expansion has to match the mounting surface, or we create new stress points. Same problem, different timeline." Dr. Cross checked her own thermometer. "Current temperature is 68. How long to reach 73? Depends on ambient conditions. Maybe 15 minutes. Someone in the crowd groaned. Entertainment shouldn't require patience. Marcus ignored them, started the engine, let it idle. The Ferrari's exhaust note filled the showroom, a sound engineered to trigger something primal in the human brain. He monitored temperature on his infrared thermometer, watched the numbers climb incrementally. Catherine Reeves appeared beside Dr. Cross, spoke quietly, but Marcus heard every word. "I made some calls. 4 people canceled orders with Victoria in the last hour. 2.7 million in revenue gone. Word travels fast in circles like ours. What happens to the dealership? Depends on how deep the rot goes. If this is isolated incident, maybe she survives. If there's a pattern..." Catherine trailed off, glanced at Marcus. "Patterns tend to surface once people start looking." The temperature hit 73 degrees. Marcus killed the engine, moved fast while the heat window remained optimal. The new bracket aligned perfectly, bolt holes matching, surface contact clean. He torqued each bolt in sequence, diagonal pattern, 15 foot-pounds initial, final torque to specification. The work took 11 minutes. When he finished, the installation looked factory fresh, as if the car had rolled off the line yesterday instead of years ago. Cross examined his work with a jeweler's loupe, checking clearances, inspecting bolt tension. She straightened after 2 minutes, addressed the crowd. "Perfect installation. Textbook procedure. Better than textbook, actually. He adapted for thermal conditions most technicians wouldn't even consider." Marcus wiped his hands on a shop rag, aware of oil under his fingernails, aware of how he must look to these people in their $1,000 shoes. He walked to the driver's seat, settled behind the wheel of a car worth more than every vehicle he'd ever owned combined, turned the key. The engine caught immediately, that characteristic Ferrari snarl, but different now. Cleaner, smoother, no hesitation. Marcus revved it once, twice, watching the tachometer sweep smoothly through the range where stalls had occurred. Nothing. Just power, controlled and precise. He put the car in gear, maneuvered it through the showroom in a slow circuit, testing different scenarios. Hard acceleration from stop. Gentle acceleration. High RPM hold. Every condition that had triggered failures before. The Ferrari performed flawlessly. Marcus returned to the starting position, shut down the engine, and the silence that followed felt weighted with something that hadn't existed an hour ago. Respect, maybe. Or fear. Hard to tell which scared people more. Competence appearing where they didn't expect it, or realizing how much talent they'd been walking past without seeing. He stepped out of the car. Victoria's office door remained closed, but he could see her silhouette through the glass, phone pressed to her ear, posture rigid. Making calls. Damage control. Already planning the counterattack. Dr. Cross handed Marcus a business card. UCLA Extension offers automotive technology courses. I teach 2 of them. You should come by. I think we could learn as much from you as you'd learn from the program. I work 60 hours a week. Got a daughter who needs evening classes, and I'm serious about documenting your methodology. There's publishable research here, co-author credit, which means your name in academic journals. Opens doors that have been closed to you. Marcus pocketed the card, felt the weight of possibilities he couldn't quite process yet. Catherine Reeves materialized again, moved like someone who'd learned to command space through presence rather than volume. Mr. Westbrook, we should talk, privately. My office is 20 minutes from here. I still have 3 hours left on my shift. I don't think you're going to finish that shift. Catherine glanced toward Victoria's office. In fact, I'd be surprised if you're still employed here by end of business. The words barely had time to land before Victoria's door opened. She walked out flanked by 2 people. One Marcus recognized as Richard Kane, the corporate lawyer who handled dealership legal issues, the other a woman in an HR pantsuit carrying a tablet. Victoria's face had smoothed into professional neutrality, all emotion locked behind corporate armor. She stopped 10 feet from Marcus, and her voice came out measured, each word carefully placed. Mr. Westbrook, thank you for your assistance with the diagnostic issue. However, I'm going to need you to come with Janet to HR. There are some matters we need to discuss. The crowd's energy shifted. People who'd been smiling moments ago now looked uncomfortable, sensing the turn. Dr. Cross stepped forward. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Westbrook just solved a $12,000 problem in 90 minutes. Seems like you'd want to promote him, not reprimand him. This is a personnel matter, company policy. Victoria's smile could have cut glass. I'm sure you understand. Catherine Reeves moved between Victoria and Marcus, and her voice dropped to a register that suggested boardrooms and hostile takeovers. Victoria, every person in this room witnessed you promise that car to Mr. Westbrook if he successfully completed the repair, which he did. On video. With expert validation. If you're about to renege on that promise, I'd advise you to reconsider very carefully. The vehicle transfer is being processed. Mr. Westbrook will receive title and keys within 48 hours per our agreement. This is a separate matter regarding unauthorized use of company time for personal business. Marcus felt the trap closing. Of course. She couldn't take back the Ferrari without looking like a liar and a cheat. But she could fire him on technical grounds, blacklist him from the industry, ensure the win turned Pyrrhic. Classic move. I'll go to HR, Marcus said quietly. Catherine started to protest. He shook his head. It's fine. Let's get it over with. Janet from HR gestured toward the service corridor, and Marcus followed, aware of 50 pairs of eyes tracking his exit. The HR office was cramped, fluorescent lit, decorated with motivational posters that somehow made everything worse. Janet sat behind a desk, opened her tablet, pulled up a document. Mr. Westbrook, I'm terminating your employment effective immediately. The reasons are documented here. Unauthorized use of company property, conducting personal business on work time. Insubordination to management. You'll receive your final paycheck by mail within 7 business days. We require your badge and any company property to be returned before you leave the building. Marcus pulled his badge from his pocket, set it on the desk. The tools I used are mine, bought with my own money. That's fine, but we'll need to verify that claim. I have receipts. 8 months of purchases. $3,000 in diagnostic equipment bought from automotive supply houses. All documented. Janet made a note on her tablet. Please provide those receipts within 24 hours. Email them to this address. She wrote on a business card, slid it across. Is there anything else? Yeah, I submitted a diagnostic report 3 weeks ago about that Ferrari. Email dated November 8th. Never got a response. That report is my intellectual property. I want confirmation it won't be used without attribution. Janet blinked. I'll have to check with legal on that. You do that. Marcus stood. We done? Security will escort you out. The security guard looked embarrassed, wouldn't meet Marcus's eyes as they walked through the service corridor. They emerged in the showroom where the crowd had dispersed, people returning to their champagne and small talk. Thomas Brennan stood near the parts counter, saw Marcus being walked out, and his face did something complicated. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. Outside, the afternoon sun felt aggressive after the showroom's controlled climate. The security guard mumbled something apologetic, headed back inside. Marcus stood in the parking lot, suddenly unemployed, owner of a Ferrari he couldn't afford to insure, father of an 8-year-old who needed stability he couldn't provide. The math didn't work. The math had never worked, but now it really didn't work. His phone buzzed again. Text from Thomas. She's making calls, blacklisting you with other dealerships. I shouldn't tell you this, but fuck it. You deserved better. Another text. Unknown number. Mr. Westbrook, this is Catherine Reeves. My office in 30 minutes. Address below. Come alone. We have much to discuss. Marcus climbed into the Camry, sat behind the wheel, and felt the weight of everything crash down at once. He'd won and lost simultaneously, proved himself and destroyed his livelihood in the same 90-minute window. Pearl's voice echoed, "Sometimes being right costs more than being wrong, baby, but you still gotta be right." He started the engine on the 3rd try, pulled out of Sterling Motors' parking lot for what he assumed was the last time, and drove toward an address in Bel Air that probably cost more than he'd earn in 5 lifetimes. Catherine Reeves's home wasn't visible from the street, hidden behind walls and gates and security that buzzed him through after he gave his name. The driveway curved through landscaping that required a team of gardeners, ended at a house that looked like it had been transplanted from a French chateau. Marcus parked the Camry next to a Tesla and a vintage Jaguar, felt the economic disparity like a physical pressure. Catherine answered the door herself, which surprised him. No butler, no staff, just her in casual clothes that probably still cost thousands. Thank you for coming. I know you have questions. Starting with why a billionaire wants to talk to someone who just got fired. Because you're about to become very famous, and famous without resources is dangerous. Catherine led him through rooms decorated with art Marcus vaguely recognized from museums, into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles. Sit. Please. Marcus sat in a chair that cost more than his monthly rent. Catherine settled behind a desk made of some wood he couldn't identify, pulled up her laptop. 3 things you need to know. First, that video of Victoria dropping the keys has 19 million views and counting. TMZ picked it up. So did CNN. You're a story now. Janitor shows up Ferrari specialists, gets fired for it. The narrative writes itself. Marcus's stomach dropped. I didn't want attention. I just wanted to fix the car. Too late. The world knows your name. Which brings me to second thing. Victoria's making calls, trying to blacklist you. I've intercepted 4 so far. She's telling people you're a lawsuit risk, that you fabricated credentials, that hiring you means legal trouble. It's working. Nobody in Southern California will touch you. So I'm unemployed and unemployable. Great. Unless... Catherine turned her laptop to face him. The screen showed financial documents, corporate filings, patterns highlighted in yellow. Unless we prove Victoria's pattern of discrimination is so systemic that her warnings become evidence of retaliation, which requires documentation, which requires investigation. Marcus leaned forward, scanned the documents. Glassdoor reviews, DFEH complaints, settlement agreements with redacted names. The pattern was obvious once you knew to look. You've been investigating her. I investigate everyone I do business with. Due diligence. What you found, those 67 cases over 6 years, that's just the visible surface. Catherine pulled up more files. I traced this back 3 decades. Her father paid out $5.2 million sealed settlements before Victoria even took over. 1995, 2007, 2018. The company's entire model is burying discrimination claims instead of fixing the culture. How'd you get sealed settlement records? Money buys access. So does knowing which lawyers gossip after their 3rd scotch. Catherine's smile was sharp. Victoria's father founded this company in 1994. He had a sealed discrimination lawsuit in 1995, $2.2 million settlement. Another in 2007, $1.1 million. The 2018 one you found was $1.9. That's $5.2 million paid out over 3 decades to make discrimination allegations disappear. The company's entire business model relies on burying problems instead of fixing them. Marcus processed the numbers, felt something cold settle in his gut. So what happens now? Now you decide if you want justice or just want this to go away. Because justice means labor commission hearing, means discovery, means Victoria's entire operation gets examined under legal microscope. It means your name attached to every article, every news segment, every discussion about race and employment in America. It means you become the face of something bigger than one Ferrari repair. And if I just want it to go away, I'll hire you. Chief Diagnostic Engineer for my private collection. Salary $145,000, full benefits, your daughter on the health insurance. You start Monday, work 9 to 5, never deal with Victoria Sterling again. The video fades, life moves on. Marcus looked out the window at Los Angeles sprawling toward the horizon, thought about Zoe, about bills, about the pressure that never stopped. $145,000 would solve everything. Zoe could have new shoes without duct tape. He could save for her college. They could move somewhere without roaches in the kitchen. The temptation felt like gravity. But Pearl's words echoed, "Don't let them make you invisible, baby." What happens to the other 66 people? Marcus heard himself ask. The ones who filed complaints, got buried by NDAs, lost their careers. What happens to them if I take your job and stay quiet? Catherine's expression softened. Nothing. They stay buried. Victoria continues business as usual, maybe gets more careful about documentation, but the pattern continues, because patterns don't break themselves. And if I fight, then I fund your legal representation, connect you with civil rights attorneys who've been waiting for a case like this, provide documentation I've gathered, testify about what I witnessed, help you find the other 66 people, and see if any are willing to join a class action. Catherine paused. It won't be easy. Victoria will fight back hard. She'll dig into your life, look for anything to discredit you, your finances, your history, anything that can be twisted. She'll make it expensive and painful and public. Marcus thought about Zoe at school, imagined her hearing classmates talk about her father on the news, imagined parent-teacher conferences where everyone had opinions about his choices. The cost of visibility when you'd spent 37 years learning to be invisible felt impossible to calculate. His phone rang. Zoe's school. He answered fast, heart rate spiking. Mr. Westbrook, this is Principal Martinez. Nothing's wrong, but we had an incident today I wanted to discuss. Could you come by before pickup? Marcus checked the time. 3:47 p.m. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call, stood. Catherine walked him to the door, handed him her card. Think about what I said. No pressure. But decide soon. The window for Labor Commission complaints is 90 days from termination. Clock's ticking. Marcus drove to Hancock Elementary with his mind churning through possibilities, each one worse than the last. The school's parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars belonging to staff. He found Principal Martinez in her office, and Zoe sat in a chair outside, backpack on her lap. Face unreadable. Principal Martinez was 50-something, Latina, carried herself with the exhausted competence of someone who'd seen every variety of school crisis. She gestured for Marcus to sit. Zoe's not in trouble, but we had an incident at lunch today involving another student's parent. The parent was picking up her son early for a dentist appointment, saw Zoe in the cafeteria, and made some comments. Marcus's jaw clenched. What kind of comments? She asked Zoe if her father had taught her how to fix the cafeteria microwave, implied that fixing things was, quote, what people like your dad do. Zoe got upset, told the parent her father was smarter than anyone at the school. The parent laughed. Zoe threw her juice box at her. Despite everything, Marcus felt a flicker of pride. Did she hit her? Direct hit to the designer purse. Apple juice everywhere. Principal Martinez's lips twitched. Like I said, Zoe's not in trouble. The parent's behavior was inappropriate. But I wanted you aware because the parent is threatening to complain to the school board. And given what's happening online, she trailed off meaningfully. You've seen the video. Everyone's seen the video. It's impressive, Mr. Westbrook, truly, but it's also making waves that affect your daughter. Kids are talking, parents are talking, and not all of it is supportive. She leaned forward. I'm telling you this as someone who's been in education 30 years. When you become public, your family becomes public. Kids don't understand context. They just know their classmates' dad is on their parents' phones and they repeat what they hear at dinner tables. Marcus absorbed this, felt another weight add to the collection. What should I do? Depends what you want. You want this to blow over? Stay quiet, let the cycle move on. New story will replace yours in 48 hours. But if you're planning to pursue this, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. The implications hung heavy. Marcus found Zoe outside, climbed into the Camry without speaking. They were halfway home before she broke the silence. That lady at school said you probably don't know what science is. Said people like you don't understand things like volcanoes. Zoe's voice was small, angry. I told her you taught me about pyroclastic flow and magma viscosity, and she laughed, like I was lying. Baby, some people have small ideas about who's allowed to be smart. Doesn't make them right. Are you in trouble because you fixed that car? Sort of. That's stupid. You did something good and got punished. Zoe kicked the seat. I hate that lady. I hate her stupid face. Hey, we don't hate people. Why not? She hates us. The question didn't have a good answer. Marcus drove in silence, pulled into their apartment complex, parked in the spot with the faded lines. Zoe grabbed her backpack, headed inside, and Marcus sat behind the wheel for another minute, gathering strength for what came next. Inside, Zoe went straight to her room, closed the door harder than necessary. Marcus stood in the kitchen, stared at the bills on the counter. Rent due in days, utilities threatening shutoff, after-school program payment overdue. His phone showed a nearly empty bank account and the knowledge that no paycheck was coming. He pulled out his laptop, opened email. 47 messages in the last 3 hours. Most were media requests, interviews, comments, background information. He deleted them systematically. 3 were from employment lawyers offering representation. He marked those as unread, couldn't process more decisions today. One email from Catherine Reeves, subject line, "No pressure, but deadlines are real." The message contained a single attachment, a draft employment contract, 145,000 salary, benefits summary, start date pending. All he had to do was sign. Another email from Thomas Brennan, no subject. The message was brief. "She's worse than you know. I have documents. Meet me tomorrow. Coffee shop on Melrose, 9 a.m. Come alone." Marcus closed the laptop, walked to Zoe's room, knocked softly. Her muffled voice granted permission to enter. She was at her desk, homework spread out, but her eyes were red. "Talk to me, baby girl." Why do people hate us? The question was too big, too old, carried weight that 8-year-olds shouldn't have to carry. Marcus sat on her bed, searched for words that wouldn't be lies but wouldn't crush hope either. They don't hate us. They hate that we're complicated. See, people like simple stories. They like knowing who's supposed to fix things and who's supposed to own things and who's supposed to be where. When someone doesn't fit the story they expect, it makes them uncomfortable. And some people turn that discomfort into anger. That's not fair. No, it's not. So what do we do? Marcus thought about Catherine's offer, about the Labor Commission, about 66 other people waiting for someone to break the pattern. He thought about Pearl, cleaning buildings for 40 years, dying invisible, her expertise dismissed as custodial work. He thought about the cost of visibility versus the cost of silence. "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together." Zoe nodded, returned to her homework. Marcus kissed her forehead, retreated to his own space, and spent the next 3 hours researching civil rights law, labor commission procedures, legal precedents for discrimination cases. The internet provided both too much information and not enough. By midnight, his eyes burned and his understanding hadn't improved significantly. He finally gave up, checked his bank account one more time like it might have changed, and collapsed into bed fully clothed. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by anxiety dreams where he was perpetually late to places that didn't exist. The alarm at 5 a.m. felt like punishment for crimes he hadn't committed. Marcus dragged himself vertical, realized he didn't have to drop Zoe at school for another 2 hours, and the absence of routine felt disorienting. No job meant no structure, meant time became liquid and shapeless. He made coffee that tasted like disappointment, sat at the kitchen table and pulled up his phone. The video had passed 30 million views overnight. Comments section was predictably toxic, half the people calling him a hero, half suggesting various ways he'd fabricated or stolen the diagnosis. Someone had already made a meme. Someone else had started a GoFundMe without his permission. At 7:30, he woke Zoe, made breakfast, helped with morning routine. She was quiet, subdued, nothing like her normal chaos. They drove to school in silence, and when she climbed out of the car, she turned back. "Daddy? If you have to do something that makes people mad, but it's the right thing," Grandma Pearl would say, "do it anyway, right?" "Yeah, baby," she'd say that. "Okay, just wanted to remind you." Zoe slung her backpack over one shoulder, headed toward the gate. Marcus watched until she disappeared inside, then drove toward Melrose, feeling like he was heading toward something irreversible. The coffee shop was aggressively hip, all reclaimed wood and Edison bulbs and menu items that required explanation. Thomas Brennan sat in the back corner, 2 coffees already on the table, laptop open. He saw Marcus, waved him over. "Thanks for coming. Wasn't sure you would." Marcus sat. "You said you have documents." "Right to the point." "Okay." Thomas spun the laptop around. "I've been service manager for 3 years. Part of my job is reviewing HR records, employee files, complaint documentation. I've seen things I should have reported. Didn't, because I'm a coward who likes his paycheck. But after yesterday, he pulled up a spreadsheet. This is every employee in the last 6 years. Hire date, termination date, ethnicity, final reason for departure. You see the pattern? Marcus scanned the data. The pattern was statistical brutality. 67 people of color, average tenure 11.3 months. 3 had been promoted. 64 had been terminated or quit under pressure. Reasons varied but clustered around familiar phrases. Cultural fit, attitude problems, performance issues, attendance concerns. Now look at comparable white employees. Thomas switched sheets. Same positions, same departments. Average tenure 5.2 years. 41% promoted. Only 12% terminated, and those were for documented cause. Theft, sexual harassment, criminal charges. None of this attitude or cultural fit vagueness. Why are you showing me this? Because I enabled it. I processed those terminations, wrote those performance reviews, found the technical reasons that made discrimination look like management discretion. I told myself I was just doing my job. But watching you yesterday, seeing Victoria try to humiliate you and watching you prove her wrong. Thomas rubbed his face. I can't keep pretending I don't see what this place is. So give it to the Labor Commission. Give it to civil rights attorneys. I'm giving it to you. What you do with it is your choice. But know that if this goes public, Victoria will destroy me too. I'll lose my job, probably get blacklisted same as you. My wife is pregnant. We just bought a house. The timing is catastrophically bad. Thomas closed the laptop. But I keep thinking about the 67 people in that spreadsheet. The careers ended, the families disrupted, the talent wasted. And I keep thinking maybe the cost of staying silent is higher than the cost of speaking up. Marcus drank his coffee, tasted nothing. If I do this, you understand what happens? Labor Commission hearing means discovery, means your documents become evidence, means you testify under oath. Victoria's lawyers will rip into you. They'll say you're disgruntled, making things up, trying to cover your own liability. I know, but I also know those documents are real. The pattern is real. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people tell the truth at once, the truth becomes undeniable. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Catherine Reeves. My offer stands through tonight midnight. After that, job goes to someone else. Not pressure, just logistics. Respond by midnight or I'll assume you declined. Another text, this one from Dr. Cross. UCLA wants to meet with you Monday 2 p.m. Potential teaching position, equipment access, research collaboration. Let me know if you're interested. A third text, unknown number. Mr. Westbrook, this is Elena Marsh from the ACLU. We'd like to discuss potential civil rights case against Sterling Motors. Please call when convenient. Marcus set down his phone, looked at Thomas. You'll lose everything. Maybe. Or maybe I'll find out what having integrity feels like. Thomas slid a flash drive across the table. Encrypted. Password is your grandmother's name, all lowercase. Every document I could access without triggering IT alerts, employee files, complaint logs, internal emails, salary data, everything you need to prove the pattern. Marcus picked up the flash drive, felt its weight, plastic and silicone holding the power to detonate someone's life. He thought about Zoe's question this morning, about Pearl's training, about 66 people who'd already paid the price of someone else's prejudice. Midnight, he said, standing. I'll have an answer by midnight. He drove home with the flash drive in his pocket, feeling like he was carrying a live grenade. The apartment was empty, quiet, no distractions from the decision ahead. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, opened his laptop, plugged in the drive. The encryption prompt appeared. He typed Pearl, lowercase, and the files unlocked. 2 hours later, he'd read enough to understand the scope. This wasn't isolated incidents or unfortunate misunderstandings. This was architecture. Victoria had built a system that funneled people of color into low-wage positions, monitored them for any excuse to terminate, and buried complaints through NDAs and settlements. The documentation was meticulous because she'd never expected anyone to compile it, never imagined the pieces forming a pattern visible from sufficient height. Marcus's phone rang. Catherine Reeves. "Have you decided?" "Still thinking." "Think faster. I need an answer before I head into evening meetings." She paused. "For what it's worth, I understand the weight of this choice. I made the wrong one 15 years ago. Cost a good man his career. I've regretted it ever since. But I can't make this decision for, you. Why does it matter to you so much? Why invest all this time and money in someone else's fight?" "Because I told you about Darius Coleman last night. That mistake has haunted me for 15 years. I'm 60 years old, Marcus. I have more money than I need and less time than I'd like. Someone gave me a chance 34 years ago when I had nothing. Been waiting for the right moment to pay that forward. You walked into my life at exactly that moment. What if I take your job offer? What if I just want to provide for my daughter and let someone else fight this fight?" "Then I'll respect that choice and never mention it again. But you'll know those 66 people are still out there, still carrying what was done to them, and you had the power to help and chose comfort instead." She let that sit for a moment. "There's no wrong answer here, Marcus. Just the one you can live with." The call ended. Marcus sat in the silence of his kitchen, surrounded by documents that proved systematic discrimination, holding a flash drive that could change everything or destroy him, and thought about what Pearl would say. She'd spent 40 years cleaning buildings, watching executives make mistakes, seeing incompetence rewarded while talent got dismissed. She'd died with $11 to her name, a lifetime of expertise unrecognized because no one thought to ask the janitor for solutions. She'd taught Marcus everything about engines and integrity, and refusing to be invisible, then disappeared without the world noticing. Marcus pulled out his phone, opened Catherine's email with the employment contract. 145,000. Benefits. Stability. Safety. Everything he needed to give Zoe the childhood she deserved. All he had to do was sign and send. His finger hovered over the reply button. Then he thought about Zoe at school, defending her father to someone who couldn't imagine a janitor understanding science. Thought about the parent laughing, about Zoe throwing the juice box in rage and righteous anger. Thought about what he was teaching her with each choice. He closed Catherine's email, opened a new message, started typing. The email took Marcus 20 minutes to write. Each sentence revised until it carried exactly what he needed to say without revealing how terrified he actually was. He addressed it to Elena Marsh at the ACLU, copied Catherine Reeves and Dr. Cross, attached a brief summary of what Thomas's flash drive contained. "I'm prepared to file a labor commission complaint and participate in whatever legal action follows. I have documentation proving systematic discrimination spanning 6 years. I understand this will be public and difficult. I'm doing it anyway because 67 people deserve better than being erased by non-disclosure agreements." His finger hovered over send for 30 seconds. Then he pressed it, felt the whoosh of the message leaving his control, entering the world where it would metastasize into consequences he couldn't predict. The phone rang before he could set it down. Catherine's voice came through sharp and approving. "Smart move. Elena Marsh is a killer. She's been trying to crack Sterling Motors for 3 years, couldn't get anyone to testify. You just handed her a gift." "Doesn't feel like a gift. Feels like I volunteered to get hit by a bus." "Sometimes the bus is already coming. You just chose which side of the street to stand on." Catherine's tone shifted to business. "Elena will call within an hour. She'll want to meet Monday morning. Go through everything before filing. Labor Commission deadline is 90 days from termination. So we've got time, but not unlimited time. She'll also want to find the other 66 people. See who's willing to join a class action. And if nobody else wants to risk it, then you go alone. Won't be as strong legally, but the documentation speaks for itself. Pattern is pattern whether one person testifies or 67. The call ended. Marcus sat with his phone, watching the screen, and 3 minutes later, it rang again. Elena Marsh had a voice that suggested courtrooms and winning arguments. Mr. Westbrook, I've reviewed your email. I need to be direct. This case will consume your life for the next 12 to 18 months, minimum. Discovery, depositions, hearings, appeals. Victoria Sterling will hire the best defense attorneys money can buy. They'll investigate every aspect of your history, looking for anything to discredit you. Parking tickets, late payments, ex-girlfriends, anything that can be twisted into character assassination. Can you handle that level of scrutiny? My wife died 4 years ago. I've got a daughter who needs stability. My bank account has $89. I just lost my job and I'm about to lose my apartment. How much worse can it get? Considerably worse, but also potentially much better. Elena's voice warmed slightly. Catherine sent me the flash drive. I've been looking at it for the last 10 minutes. This is the kind of documentation civil rights attorneys dream about. Time-stamped emails, salary comparisons, complaint logs that directly contradict Victoria's public statements. If even a quarter of the other employees are willing to testify, we can prove pattern and practice so clearly that settling becomes Victoria's best option. What kind of settlement are we talking about? Depends on damages. Your case alone, with wrongful termination and retaliation, could be $400,000 plus. Class action with 67 plaintiffs? We're looking at 2 to 3 million total, possibly more with punitive damages. But money isn't the only goal here. We want policy changes, oversight, consent decree requiring independent monitoring for years. We want to make sure this can't happen to employee number 68. Marcus absorbed the numbers, tried to imagine having $400,000, couldn't make it real in his head. That kind of money belonged to other people who lived in Catherine's world, not his. Monday morning, he found himself agreeing. What time? 9 a.m., my office downtown. Bring every piece of documentation you have, including your employment file, pay stubs, any written communications with management. And Mr. Westbrook, don't talk to anyone else about this. Victoria's lawyers will be monitoring social media, trying to contact you directly. Anything you say can be used to undermine the case. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and logistics. Marcus avoided social media but couldn't avoid the texts. Messages from former co-workers, media outlets, random strangers who'd found his number somehow. He ignored all of them, focused on Zoe, on being present for the science fair project that suddenly felt critically important. They built a volcano together Saturday afternoon, papier-mâché over a wire frame, painted it to look like geological cross-section. Zoe narrated the process with 8-year-old enthusiasm, explaining pyroclastic density currents and tephra deposits with terms she'd learned from library books. Marcus watched her work, thought about how Pearl would have loved this, would have found a way to connect volcanic activity to engine thermodynamics, would have turned education into something that stuck. Sunday morning brought another complication. Marcus woke to find his Camry wouldn't start. Battery dead, alternator making a grinding sound that suggested expensive failure. He called a tow truck he couldn't afford, had it taken to a shop he trusted, got the estimate by text an hour later. $900 for alternator replacement, timing belt while they were in there. Oil change because when else would he have the chance? His bank account couldn't handle $900. Couldn't handle $90. He called Catherine, hated himself for it, explained the situation. "I'll wire you 5,000. Cover the repair, cover rent, cover food until this settles. Consider it a loan against your eventual settlement." "I can't take your money. You're about to fight a battle I should have fought 15 years ago. Let me pay for your alternator. It's literally the least I can do." The money appeared in his account by Sunday afternoon, foreign and unsettling. Marcus had never had $5,000 available at once. The number felt impossible, like it might disappear if he looked at it too hard. He paid for the car repair, paid his overdue electric bill, bought groceries without checking prices, and still had $4,200 left. The relief was so intense it made him nauseous. Monday morning arrived with California sunshine that felt like mockery. Marcus dropped Zoe at school, drove downtown to an office building that screamed expensive legal work. Elena Marsh's firm occupied the 14th floor, all glass and modern furniture and associates who looked like they'd never worried about alternator repair costs. Elena herself was 50-something, black, carried herself with the controlled intensity of someone who'd spent decades winning impossible fights. She shook Marcus's hand, led him to a conference room where Catherine and Dr. Cross already waited. "Let's start with timeline. Walk me through everything from your first day at Sterling Motors to your termination. Every detail matters. Who hired you, what training you received, any incidents you witnessed, any conversations that felt off. I'm recording, and my associate will transcribe." Elena gestured to a younger woman with a laptop. "Take your time. Nothing is too small." Marcus spent 3 hours reconstructing 8 months of employment. The work itself was straightforward: cleaning, maintenance, occasional vehicle detailing. But woven through it was the texture of daily microaggressions, the pattern of being treated as furniture until furniture became inconvenient. He described the wage disparity: 17 per hour, while James, a white janitor hired 2 months after him, made 24. Described the different uniforms. POC employees wore gray with trainee badges regardless of tenure. White employees wore navy with staff badges after 2 weeks. Described bathroom access. POC employees directed to basement facilities. White employees used the main floor bathrooms next to the showroom. Elena took notes, asked clarifying questions, dug into specifics. "Did anyone explicitly tell you that you couldn't use the main floor bathroom?" "No. But when I tried once, Gary Mitchell, head mechanic, told me those were for customers and management. Said I should use the employee facilities downstairs." "And Gary is white?" "Yes." "Did you ever see white employees using the main floor bathroom?" "Multiple times, including James, who had the same job title I did." Elena wrote something, underlined it twice. "Okay, keep going." By noon, Marcus's voice was hoarse, and his memories felt like open wounds. They broke for lunch, sandwiches delivered from somewhere expensive, and reconvened to go through Thomas's documents. The flash drive contained devastation in spreadsheet form. The pattern Marcus had uncovered: 67 cases, systematic wage gaps, different treatment at every level, was documented with precision that Victoria never expected anyone to compile. Internal emails revealed conscious decision-making, Victoria explicitly telling managers to improve cultural alignment and ensure customer comfort, phrases that meant something specific to anyone paying attention. One email from 2021 made Elena pause and read aloud. From Victoria Sterling to Richard Kane, company lawyer. Subject: HR concerns. Quote, "We need to be more careful about paper trails. Last termination generated DFEH complaint that cost us time and money to settle. Going forward, document performance issues for 60 days before termination. Create justification that withstands scrutiny. Better to invest in documentation than litigation." End quote. Elena looked up. She's literally describing how to manufacture legally defensible reasons for discrimination. This is consciousness of guilt in writing. Catherine leaned forward. Can we use this to pierce the prior settlements? Show pattern predating the NDA'd cases? Possibly. Depends on settlement terms, but if we can prove ongoing pattern after settlements, it suggests the settlements were cosmetic rather than corrective. Strengthens our argument for systemic discrimination versus isolated incidents. They worked through the afternoon, building a narrative from fragments. By 5 p.m., Marcus felt hollowed out, every memory examined and catalogued, his employment reduced to evidence in a legal filing he couldn't fully understand. Elena closed her laptop with finality. Here's what happens next. I'm filing your Labor Commission complaint Wednesday. Simultaneously filing a civil lawsuit in federal court, wrongful termination, retaliation, violation of Title VII, California Fair Employment and Housing Act, Bain Act for threats and intimidation. We're seeking compensatory damages, punitive damages, injunctive relief requiring oversight and policy changes. How long until hearing? Labor Commission usually schedules within 90 days. Federal case will take longer, 12 to 18 months before trial unless they settle. Victoria's lawyers will file motions to dismiss, try to delay, drag this out, hoping you run out of resources and patience. That's why Catherine's support is crucial. We need you financially stable enough to survive the timeline. Marcus nodded, tried to absorb the scale. 18 months. Zoe would be 10 by then. His entire world would be legal proceedings and depositions and uncertainty. One more thing. Elena pulled out a document, slid it across. Media strategy. The video gave you visibility, but visibility without message control is dangerous. We need to get ahead of the narrative. I've scheduled interviews with NPR and the Los Angeles Times for next week. Keep it simple. Talk about your grandmother, your qualifications, what happened. Don't speculate about Victoria's motives. Don't make accusations beyond what's documented. Let the facts speak. I'm not comfortable doing interviews. Comfortable doesn't matter. Victoria's lawyers are already spreading counter-narrative, that you're disgruntled, fabricated credentials, that the Ferrari repair was luck. We need to establish your credibility before they poison the well. Catherine spoke up. I can coach you through media training. 2 hours tomorrow, my office. It's learnable. Marcus wanted to refuse, wanted to retreat into invisibility, wanted everything to go back to when his biggest problem was an overdue electric bill. But he'd sent the email, crossed the bridge, and burning behind him was the only option now. Okay. Tomorrow. He drove home in rush-hour traffic, mind numb from information overload. Zoe was at after-school program, which gave him an hour to decompose before parenting resumed. He collapsed on his couch, closed his eyes, and his phone rang immediately. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Marcus Westbrook? Male voice, unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Jerome Carter. I worked at Sterling Motors in 2020. Got fired for attendance issues even though I had documentation for every absence. Saw your video, heard you're filing complaints. He paused. I want in. Marcus sat up. How'd you get my number? Mutual friend. Thomas Brennan. He said you're building a case, looking for other people who got screwed. I kept every email, every performance review, every document from my time there. Still have the text where Victoria told me I wasn't the right cultural fit for client-facing work, even though I had more certifications than 3 white mechanics who got promoted. There's an attorney, Elena Marsh at ACLU. I can give you her number. Already called her. She said I should talk to you first, hear what you're getting into. So I'm asking, how bad is this going to be? Marcus thought about the question, about the weight of the last 72 hours, about what lay ahead. Worse than you think. They'll dig into everything, try to destroy your credibility, make this as expensive and painful as possible. You'll be public, your name attached to discrimination case, which means explaining it in job interviews forever. It'll follow you. Yeah, but what if we win? Then maybe employee number 68 doesn't go through what we did. Maybe the pattern breaks. Maybe we prove something that matters. Worth it. Jerome's voice was certain. Elena's sending me paperwork. I'll sign tonight. The call ended. Marcus's phone rang again immediately. Another former employee, this one named Shanice Williams, fired in 2019 for attitude problems after reporting sexual harassment by a manager. Then Malik Robinson, who quit after 3 months of being assigned the worst shifts and most degrading tasks. Then 3 more, one after another, people who'd been buried by NDAs or scared into silence, finally finding a moment where speaking up felt possible. By the time Marcus picked up Zoe, he had 9 former employees ready to testify. Elena called at 7:00 p.m. sounding energized in a way that suggested late nights and trial preparation. Word is spreading. Former employees are reaching out through back channels. We're up to 14 potential plaintiffs. If we get 20, this becomes a class action that Sterling Motors can't ignore. Their insurance won't cover systemic discrimination, which means Victoria's personal assets are exposed. That's leverage. What do you need from me? Keep being exactly who you are. Do the interviews, tell your story, let people see why this matters. And Marcus? Prepare for retaliation. Victoria's going to fight back hard. Might try to intimidate witnesses, might leak information to friendly media, might do things we can't predict. Stay vigilant. Tuesday brought media training with Catherine, 2 hours of learning how to bridge from questions he didn't want to answer to messages he needed to deliver. She was relentless, attacking from angles Marcus hadn't considered, teaching him to stay calm under pressure that felt deliberately designed to crack composure. You're a janitor who claims to be a certified mechanic. How do we know you didn't just get lucky with that Ferrari diagnosis? I'm not claiming anything. I have ASE Master Technician certification, which requires passing 8 separate exams covering everything from engine repair to electrical systems. I can show you the certificates. The Ferrari diagnosis wasn't luck. It was specific knowledge about thermal stress fractures in aluminum mounting brackets, documented in Society of Automotive Engineers technical papers. Anyone with proper training would have found the same problem. 5 specialists missed it because they relied on computer diagnostics instead of acoustic analysis and thermal imaging. Much better. See how you redirected from defensive to factual? Do that every time. Don't explain yourself. Explain the facts. Catherine made notes on her tablet. Next question. Victoria Sterling says you were fired for cause, that you were a problem employee. Response? I was terminated immediately after successfully completing a public challenge she issued. I have video of the entire event. I have expert testimony from Dr. Evelyn Cross, a Ferrari consultant, validating my diagnosis and repair. The timeline speaks for itself. I fixed a $12,000 problem in 90 minutes, and I was fired 2 hours later. If that's not retaliation, I don't know what is. They drilled for another hour, Catherine throwing curveballs until Marcus could handle them without visible stress. By the end, he felt exhausted but competent, like he'd learned a language he didn't want to speak, but might need to survive. Wednesday morning, Elena filed the Labor Commission complaint and federal lawsuit simultaneously. The filings became public record immediately, and by noon, every major news outlet had the story. Marcus's phone exploded with interview requests, which Elena's office filtered and scheduled. NPR wanted him Thursday morning. LA Times wanted a written response to questions. Local TV news wanted him that evening. He did the NPR interview from a quiet room in Elena's office, headphones on, microphone in front of him, and tried to sound like someone who belonged in this situation. The interviewer was skilled, asked open-ended questions that let him tell the story without leading him into legal traps. Mr. Westbrook, you've worked in automotive repair for how long? Informally, since I was 12. My grandmother Pearl taught me. She was a janitor, but she understood machines better than most engineers. She'd diagnose problems with cars in parking lots while she was taking breaks from cleaning offices, taught me to listen, to feel, to read what machines were saying. And you pursued formal certification? Self-taught through library books and technical journals. Saved money over 3 years to take the ASE exams. Passed all 8, became Master Technician certified in 2021. Then spent 2 years applying to every dealership and repair shop in Southern California. 47 applications. 47 rejections. So I took a janitorial job to feed my daughter, figured I'd keep studying, keep trying. Didn't expect the Ferrari situation, but when Victoria issued that challenge, I knew I could solve it. Pearl's training doesn't stop being valid because no one gave me a chance to use it professionally. What do you hope comes from the lawsuit? Justice for the 67 people who lost their jobs or quit under pressure. Policy changes so employee number 68 doesn't face what we faced. And maybe, if we're lucky, a conversation about how many talented people get overlooked because they don't look like what employers expect expertise to look like. The interview ended after 20 minutes. Marcus removed the headphones, felt like he'd run a marathon. Elena gave him a thumbs up through the glass, mouthed, "Perfect." The LA Times article published Thursday afternoon, front page of the business section, with a photo of Marcus standing next to the Ferrari. The headline read, "Janitor's Ferrari Repair Exposes Alleged Discrimination at Luxury Dealership." The article laid out the timeline, the pattern, the mounting evidence. Victoria declined to comment, but her lawyer issued a statement calling the allegations baseless and contradicted by company records. By Friday morning, 22 former employees had contacted Elena. The case was snowballing, gathering momentum that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Marcus did 3 more interviews, each one easier than the last, and by week's end he'd settled into a rhythm of legal preparation and media management that felt like a job except it didn't pay and might destroy his life. Saturday morning brought a break in the routine. Dr. Cross called, asked if he could meet her at UCLA Monday afternoon. "There's something you need to see, and someone who wants to meet you." Monday at 2:00 p.m. Marcus found himself in a UCLA engineering lab surrounded by equipment that cost more than houses. Dr. Cross led him through the facility, explaining various research projects, and stopped at a workbench where a student was testing engine components using acoustic analysis equipment. "This is Amanda Chen, PhD candidate studying harmonic resonance failure modes in automotive systems. Show him what you're working on." Amanda pulled up data on her laptop, showed Marcus frequency analysis charts that looked similar to his own crude measurements. "I'm documenting how different materials respond to thermal stress cycling. Aluminum alloys develop microfractures that create harmonic resonance at specific frequencies. It's one of the hardest problems to diagnose because standard sensors can't detect it." Marcus studied the charts, saw his Ferrari diagnosis reflected in academic rigor. "This is what I found, but I didn't have language to describe it precisely. You found it through practical observation. We're trying to build theoretical framework that makes it teachable. Dr. Cross mentioned your methodology, acoustic stethoscope, infrared thermometry, vibration analysis. That's exactly what we're researching, but you're doing it in the field without million-dollar lab equipment." Dr. Cross stepped forward. "Which brings me to why you're here. UCLA Extension wants to hire you as adjunct instructor for our automotive technology program. 2 courses, one on diagnostic methodology, one on practical engine repair. Classes meet Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 6 to 9. Pays $60,000 annually plus access to all university facilities. Your daughter gets tuition benefits if she eventually wants to attend UCLA." Marcus blinked, tried to process. "I'm not qualified to teach. You diagnosed a problem that stumped 5 Ferrari specialists. You've got ASE Master Technician certification. You've developed a methodology that's academically valid even if you didn't formalize it. Students need to learn from people who've solved real problems, not just read textbooks. Dr. Cross pulled out a contract. Position starts next semester if you want it. Classes are small, 12 to 15 students. You develop the curriculum based on what you know. We provide support, resources, whatever you need. What about the lawsuit? Won't UCLA have concerns about the publicity? The publicity is exactly why they want you. You're demonstrating that expertise exists in unexpected places, that the traditional credentialing system misses talent. UCLA wants to be part of changing that narrative. Plus, having you on faculty during the lawsuit sends a message about where the university stands on discrimination issues. Marcus read through the contract, saw salary numbers that would change everything, saw legitimacy he'd spent years pursuing suddenly offered freely. The irony wasn't lost. It took a public discrimination lawsuit to get opportunities that should have been available years ago based on merit alone. Can I think about it? Take a week. But Marcus, this is real. You've earned this. Don't let imposter syndrome convince you otherwise. He drove home with the contract on the passenger seat, mind churning through possibilities. $60,000 from UCLA, settlement money eventually, Catherine's loan already covering immediate needs. For the first time in 8 years, financial pressure wasn't crushing him. The relief felt foreign, almost suspicious, like the universe was setting him up for a harder fall. Zoe was at the apartment when he arrived, working on her volcano for the science fair. The project was due Friday, and she'd spent the week perfecting it, adding details that went beyond the assignment. Marcus helped her mix the vinegar and baking soda for test runs, watched her face light up when the eruption worked perfectly. "Daddy, Ms. Rivera says some parents are upset that I'm in the science fair." Marcus's stomach clenched. "Why?" "Because of the video. Because you're on the news. Tommy's mom said I'm only getting attention because people feel sorry for me." Zoe's voice was small. "But I worked really hard on this. It's not about you. It's my project." "Baby, some people can't separate things. They see me and they see you, and they can't understand you're your own person with your own talent. But that doesn't make your volcano any less impressive. You built something that demonstrates scientific principles. You can explain pyroclastic flow better than most adults. That's real achievement, not pity. Are we always going to be like this? People seeing us as the video instead of as us?" The question cut deep because Marcus didn't have a good answer. Fame was its own prison, and he'd walked them both into it. Maybe for a while. But eventually something else will capture people's attention. We just have to ride this out. Tuesday brought the Labor Commission preliminary hearing, a procedural thing mostly handled by Elena, but requiring Marcus's presence. The hearing room was bureaucratic and soul-deadening, fluorescent lights and particle board furniture, the aesthetic of government trying to do justice on inadequate budget. Victoria wasn't there, represented by 2 lawyers from Morrison and Kane who objected to everything on principle. The hearing officer, a tired-looking woman named Judge Foster, reviewed the complaint and documentation. Mr. Westbrook alleges wrongful termination, discrimination based on race, retaliation for protected activity. Mrs. Sterling's representatives claimed termination was for cause, supported by employee performance records. We're scheduling a full evidentiary hearing for March 14, 2025. Both parties will have opportunity to present witnesses and evidence. Any preliminary motions? Victoria's lead attorney stood. We move to dismiss based on insufficient evidence of discriminatory intent. Mr. Westbrook's termination followed legitimate performance concerns documented over several months. Elena stood immediately. Your Honor, we have testimony from Service Manager Thomas Brennan confirming those performance concerns were fabricated post hoc to justify predetermined termination. We have video evidence of Mrs. Sterling publicly promising Mr. Westbrook a Ferrari if he succeeded at a diagnostic challenge, then terminating him hours after he succeeded. We have statistical evidence showing pattern of disparate treatment for employees of color. This motion is premature. Judge Foster made notes, looked unimpressed with both sides. Motion to dismiss denied. We're proceeding to full hearing. Both parties submit witness lists and exhibit lists by February 15th. Discovery continues under standard timelines. Anything else? The hearing ended after 45 minutes. Marcus followed Elena into the hallway where Catherine was waiting with news. 3 more former employees contacted me. We're up to 25 potential class members. Victoria's insurance company just sent her a letter denying coverage. I have a source at the company. They're saying the pattern shows willful discrimination, which isn't covered under their policy. She's exposed personally for whatever damages the court awards. What does that mean practically? Means she's scared. Means her lawyer is probably advising settlement. Means we have leverage to push for systemic reforms, not just money. Catherine smiled grimly. The Ferrari repair got everyone's attention. The lawsuit is making them take it seriously. Now we wait for Victoria to realize fighting this costs more than settling it. That evening, Marcus did his first UCLA class as guest lecturer, Dr. Cross introducing him to 15 skeptical students who saw a janitor claiming expertise they'd spent years acquiring through formal education. He ignored the skepticism, went straight to the engine block Dr. Cross had prepared, an older model with hidden problems. Someone tell me what's wrong with this engine. Students approached, ran diagnostic scans, consulted computer readouts. Nothing showed up. They looked confused, frustrated. Marcus pulled out his acoustic stethoscope, pressed it to 3 locations, listened carefully. Worn valve guide in cylinder 3. Computer doesn't detect it because it's not affecting combustion enough to trigger sensor alerts. But listen here. He handed the stethoscope to the nearest student. Hear that tapping? Slightly irregular, gets more pronounced under load. That's metal-on-metal contact where there should be clearance. Give it another 500 miles and you'll have catastrophic failure. Dr. Cross disassembled the engine, revealed the worn valve guide exactly where Marcus indicated. The student's skepticism evaporated, replaced by attention that felt like vindication. He spent the next 2 hours teaching them to listen, to feel, to read what machines were saying beyond what sensors reported. After class, 3 students approached asking questions that showed they'd been paying attention. One, a young black woman named Destiny, waited until the others left. My dad was a mechanic, worked independent shops his whole career, died 5 years ago without ever getting hired by a dealership. He had certifications, experience, everything. Just never got past the interview. Watching you teach tonight made me think about him. Made me wonder how many people like him are out there. Talent going unused because they don't fit someone's narrow idea of what expertise looks like. Marcus felt the weight of that, the pattern extending beyond his own experience into countless lives. Your dad probably taught you things those certifications can't teach. Don't waste that knowledge. I won't. And Mr. Westbrook, thank you for fighting, for making this visible. She left, and Marcus sat alone in the lab, surrounded by equipment that cost more than everything he'd ever owned, feeling both accomplished and exhausted. His phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. She'd won first place at the science fair, beat 20 other projects. Judges said her explanation of pyroclastic flow was remarkably sophisticated for 4th grade. Pride hit him so hard it felt physical. Despite everything, the lawsuit, the publicity, the instability, Zoe was thriving. Pearl would have been proud of both of them. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal preparation, media interviews, and teaching. The federal case moved forward on its slow procedural track. 28 former employees joined the class action. Victoria's lawyers filed motion after motion, all denied, all transparent delay tactics. The Labor Commission hearing loomed in mid-March, and Elena prepared Marcus for testimony that would determine everything. They practiced in her conference room, Elena playing the role of hostile attorney. "Mr. Westbrook, isn't it true that you were frequently late to work?" "I was late twice in 8 months. Both times I called ahead and made up the time. James, the white employee with my same job title, was late 6 times according to records, never disciplined." You claim discrimination, but can you point to a single instance where someone explicitly stated racial motivation? Discrimination rarely announces itself explicitly. It's in the pattern: who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets terminated, and why. The 67 POC employees with average tenure of 11 months versus white employees averaging 5 years. The wage disparities. The different uniforms. The email from Victoria telling managers to improve cultural alignment. The pattern is the evidence. What if the pattern is just coincidence? Statistical analysis says there's 0.6% chance this is coincidence. 99.4% probability this represents systematic bias. I'm not a statistician, but I trust math. Elena stopped, gave him an approving nod. Good. Stay calm, stay factual, don't get defensive. Victoria's lawyer will try to make you emotional, make you look like you're vendetta-driven rather than justice-seeking. Don't take the bait. March 14th arrived with unusual rain, Los Angeles washing itself in preparation for something that mattered. Marcus wore his only suit, bought from Goodwill and tailored by a neighbor who knew how to make cheap fabric look respectable. He drove to the Labor Commission hearing with Elena, Catherine following in her own car. Thomas Brennan was already there, looking nervous, carrying 3 boxes of documentation. The hearing room filled quickly. Media, former employees, people Marcus didn't recognize who'd come because they'd seen the story and wanted to witness justice attempted. Victoria sat at the defense table flanked by her legal team, and when her eyes met Marcus's, the hatred was palpable and undisguised. She'd lost clients, lost revenue, lost reputation. The lawsuit was costing her everything, and Marcus was the visible target for rage that couldn't admit its own complicity. Judge Foster called the room to order at 9:00 a.m. exactly. "We're here for evidentiary hearing in the matter of Westbrook v. Sterling Prestige Motors. Mr. Westbrook alleges wrongful termination and discrimination. Mrs. Sterling denies all allegations. We'll hear testimony, review evidence, and I'll issue a ruling within 30 days. Ms. Marsh, call your first witness." The complainant calls Marcus Westbrook to testify. Marcus took the stand, swore the oath, and began the testimony that would define everything that followed.